I'm John Nicholas. I'm here with Charmaine Conahan. Charmaine is the Executive Director and owner of Always Best Care in Glenview in the North Shore. And Charmaine's going to talk a bit about home care and also assisted living and similar facilities. So Charmaine, please, tell us a little bit about yourself and the work you do at Always Best Care.
Thank you, John. It's really great to talk with you today about how we can help our seniors, especially during the interesting times that we find ourselves in. What we do, my home care agency is a non-medical home care agency that we're celebrating our 10th year. And what we do is we hire caregivers who are our own employees, W-2 employees, and we send them to folks who need help with things as minor as some companionship or driving them to the grocery store, all the way to end-of-life care. We help people with hospice. We help people through the journey of dementia and many of the chronic diseases that are afflicting seniors. And another part of what we do, so aside from sending caregivers to folks wherever they call home, whether it's in a community or in their home, or even not during COVID, but in the hospital, another part of our business is also helping people select a senior community if they have determined that it's time to move. We can help people and do personalized tours with them.
So maybe you can talk a little bit about what are some of the common issues faced by seniors, and it's mostly seniors, when entering a stage when they need support services, including home care, maybe moving to a community where they need assisted living.
Sure. Families tend to identify the fact that their loved ones need care when one of two things: either a major event happens, or such as a fall or hospitalization, or when they start realizing that perhaps mom or dad's memory is not quite what it was and they may be unsafe, or if they lose their driving privileges or their driving becomes unsafe and they haven't necessarily lost their driving privileges, but they want to bring in support so that mom or dad doesn't need to drive as often. So there are several factors that can happen that families reach out for services. Like I said, so it can be an emergent situation where they need help and they need help now and they don't know anything about what we do, but they need to become an expert about it immediately. Or the other way is things are happening a little more slowly and families are being proactive. And we do encourage people, whenever we have the opportunity to talk to consumers at large, the proactive approach is much better than the reactive approach.
I'm sure there's, every family situation is different. I'm sure there's some pushback. What are some reasons why people delay or maybe are reluctant to have home care or begin the process of seeking additional help?
I can tell you there are some objections, and if I can share my screen, I wrote about this. Here we go. Sometimes the family will realize that mom or dad needs some help. They either need to move to a community setting or they need to have a caregiver brought in to help them. Either, as I said before, we can do 4 hours once a week all the way up to 24/7 if we need to. But sometimes the kids realize that the help is needed, but mom or dad absolutely don't agree and they have serious objections. And I wrote about 5 main reasons why they may object to having help in the home. It's fear, pride and denial, discomfort with having someone in their home, duty, and that's a big one when you have couples. If you have the healthy spouse or the caregiving spouse, as we sometimes call them, and you have the spouse that needs assistance, the caregiving spouse, this generation especially that we're dealing with, God love them, they have this sense that I made a vow in sickness and in health, and I am going to take care of my spouse no matter what. And what that does is that compromises their own health. So that's a really big barrier. And the 5th one is, of course, financial. Home care is not inexpensive and it is largely private pay. So those are really 5 very real objections that folks present to their loved ones when they're faced with this.
Can you give us reference points for what home care costs can range from and what someone might reasonably expect depending on their circumstance?
So home care generally can cost it's hovering around $30 an hour. My agency charges a little bit less than that, but I've been hearing, we're doing a lot of collaboration during this pandemic with other agencies, and a lot of the rates I'm seeing are either just below 30 or a little bit above 30 an hour. live-in rates can range from $315 a day for 24 hours all the way up to, I've seen some agencies charging $375 a day. Now that is for 24/7 care, as long as the caregiver has the ability to sleep.
Other issues that come up that maybe a person who hasn't been through it might not realize or might not expect?
Sure. Let's start out with definitions. Home care means that you have a caregiver coming into your home, and that is, as I said, largely private pay. Home health care, when people suddenly find themselves in this healthcare maze, they don't know what's what. Home health care is often confused with home care, and home health care is really when you are discharged from a nursing home, rehab center, or the hospital, and you are sent a nurse and you're sent a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, and possibly even a speech therapist. Those are temporary services provided by a home health care company, as opposed to home care, which is what we do. So that's important for people to understand. Some of the other things that people may not know is that you're not locked into a contract when you hire a service. We quite often take care of folks who are just discharging from a subacute setting or even a hospital, and they're recovering. They're weak, and the hospital or the nursing home says they have to go because Medicare is paying for it, and Medicare will only pay for so long, but they're not quite ready to be independent. So we can come in and we can be with them however much they need us for as long as they need us. So when you're hiring a home care company to help you, there's very little notice that you need to give to stop services. And that's very comforting to people, when they're looking at these contracts.
You mentioned the essential information folder. What would be the key things that would be in that you'd want to have filled out and prepared ahead of time?
The essential information folder is a document where, if you can see, we give folks the opportunity to write down whether they have advanced directives. That's really important. In the presentation, I talk about something called the 5 wishes, in which someone can really write down exactly how they would like to be treated when they are ill and they can't speak for themselves. If you have power of attorney, you need to, really important things your kids might not know. If your kids live out of town, they don't know what your advanced directives are possibly. They don't know who's the power of attorney necessarily, if there are several family members. Other information that you might want to know: who's your doctor? Who's your financial planner? Do you have long-term care insurance? I can't tell you how many families don't know whether or not mom or dad have long-term care insurance. Mm-hmm. And who are the contact people for their different insurance policies? Those are all things that kids find themselves scrambling to find if something happens. It's a good idea to have it all in one place. You can have a nice little folder like we can provide, or put together a binder on your own and just make sure that everything's in one spot.
Right. And you had mentioned seniors suffering from dementia. These people would benefit from having really a stranger in their home for home care, but there's also a risk to that. So how do you navigate those issues?
That, of course, was one of the objections that we talked about before, having a stranger in their home. And that's a real fear, and it's very well founded, having a stranger in your home. One of the things that you can do to mitigate that fear and that risk is to hire an agency. I know I'm biased because I have an agency and that's my business, but many people hire caregivers directly, and they employ them directly, not even to get into the accounting and legality and IRS piece of all of that, but when you hire someone directly, you don't have insurance policies to back you up. You have no supervision. There's no criminal background checks. When you have an agency, you have a caregiver who is being supervised and checked on, and they're required to do care notes. So there's a lot more structure. So yes, that person is a stranger coming into your home, but it's a stranger with an organization behind it that will make sure that your senior is taken care of.
So Charmaine, thanks. We're going to have a second part of this discussion on senior assisted living communities, and we will pick that up in our next discussion.
Thank you, John.